The security office hummed with the quiet drone of fluorescent lights as Henrik Anderson adjusted his glasses and leaned closer to the computer screen. Outside, the Swiss mountains stood silhouetted against the midnight sky, their peaks cutting sharp angles into the star-filled darkness. His coffee had grown cold hours ago, but Henrik barely noticed. The documents spread across his desk told a story that most people had forgotten. Military abandonment records from the Cold War era filled his monitor, each entry a testament to Switzerland's once mighty network of defensive bunkers. Henrik's weathered fingers traced the screen as he scrolled through declassified reports. His background in military engineering made the technical specifications come alive in ways his security guard colleagues could never understand. A particular entry caught his attention. Bunker designation AC 7749, constructed in 1962, officially abandoned in 1987, located in the remote Bernese Highlands. Henrik's pulse quickened as he read the legal notation at the bottom of the file. Under Swiss law, abandoned military installations could be claimed by civilians after 30 years of government neglect, provided proper documentation and legal procedures were followed. He glanced at the framed photograph on his desk, showing his 12-year-old daughter, Astrid, smiling beside their modest apartment window. Everything he did was for her future, for the opportunities she deserved, but that his security guard salary could barely provide. This bunker represented something more than forgotten history. It represented possibility. Henrik spent the following weeks buried in Swiss legal codes and abandonment procedures. The municipal library became his second home during off hours. Thick law books scattered across worn wooden tables as he deciphered the complex regulations governing abandoned military property. His notebook filled with careful handwriting, mapping out each required step of the claiming process. The law was clear but demanding. He needed to file a formal petition with the canton, provide evidence of the property's abandonment status, submit engineering assessments, and post public notices for 60 days, allowing government contestation. The process required precision that his military background had trained him for, but the financial burden worried him constantly. At home, Astrid watched her father work late into the night, surrounded by documents and legal forms. "Papa, what are all these papers for?" she asked one evening, her curious eyes reflecting the lamplight. Henrik looked up from his research, seeing the trust in his daughter's face. "I found something that might change our lives, Astrid. An old military bunker in the mountains that nobody wants anymore. If we follow the right steps, we might be able to claim it legally." His brother Klaus visited that weekend, shaking his head as Henrik explained his plans. "You are chasing fantasies, Henrik. You make enough as a security guard. Why risk what little savings you have on some impossible dream?" Klaus gestured dismissively at the paperwork covering the kitchen table. "Astrid needs stability, not her father tilting at windmills like some modern Don Quixote." The canton office buzzed with morning activity as Henrik approached the filing counter, his meticulously prepared petition tucked under his arm. 3 months of research had culminated in this moment. The clerk stamped his documents with bureaucratic efficiency, officially registering his claim on Bunker AC 7749. Word traveled quickly through their small mountain community. By evening, neighbors whispered about Henrik's unusual endeavor. The monthly town council meeting became the stage for public opinion, and Councilman Otto Brenner seized the opportunity to showcase his authority. "Ladies and gentlemen," Brenner announced from the podium, his round face flushed with self-importance. "We have among us a citizen who believes he can simply claim abandoned military property like some treasure hunter from a children's story. Henrik Anderson, our local security guard, apparently thinks he understands Swiss property law better than our legal experts." The council chamber erupted in nervous laughter. Henrik sat in the back row, his jaw clenched as Brenner continued his performance. This is the fantasy of a failed soldier who cannot accept his place in society. These bunkers are worthless concrete shells, abandoned for good reason. No rational person would waste time and money on such foolishness. Astrid squeezed her father's hand as heads turned their direction. Henrik felt the weight of every stare, every smirk, every whispered comment. But beneath the humiliation, his military training reminded him that ridicule often preceded vindication. He had survived worse than small-town gossip. The hiking trail wound steeply through pine forests, leading Henrik and Astrid toward the coordinates he had memorized from the military records. Saturday morning mist clung to the mountainside as they climbed higher, their backpacks loaded with basic exploration equipment Henrik had borrowed from his security company. There, Papa, Astrid pointed through the trees where concrete met rock face. The bunker in trance stood partially concealed by decades of vegetation, its steel door rusted but intact. Henrik pulled aside thick vines, revealing the military designation etched into weathered concrete. AC 7749, exactly as documented. His engineers, I immediately assessed the structure's integrity, noting the solid construction that had withstood 30 years of neglect. Inside, their flashlights cut through darkness, illuminating empty corridors that stretched deep into the mountain. Henrik's military experience guided him through the layout, identifying command rooms, storage areas, and communication centers. The bunker was far larger than the official records indicated, extending through multiple levels carved directly into bedrock. "This place is incredible, Papa," Astrid whispered, her voice echoing off concrete walls. Back in town, their neighbors had different opinions. At the grocery store, Henrik overheard Frau Mueller telling her friend about the crazy security guard who dragged his daughter to some dangerous ruin. The postman joked about Henrik's treasure hunting expedition. Even his co-workers began treating him differently, viewing his weekend explorations as evidence of instability rather than determination. The legal challenge arrived by certified mail on a Tuesday morning. Councilman Brenner had filed an official objection to Henrik's claim, citing public safety concerns and questioning his qualifications to manage military property. The canton would now require additional documentation, environmental assessments, and a formal hearing. Henrik stared at the legal papers spread across his kitchen table, calculating the mounting costs. Attorney fees, engineering reports, surveyor assessments, each requirement designed to discourage ordinary citizens from pursuing such claims. His security guard salary could barely cover rent and Astrid's school expenses, let alone thousands in legal costs. Klaus arrived that evening, his expression grim as he surveyed the paperwork mountain. "Brother, this has gone too far," he said, settling heavily into a chair. "Look at what you are putting yourself through, what you are putting Astrid through. The whole town thinks you have lost your mind." Henrik poured coffee with steady hands, his military composure intact despite the pressure. "I have followed every legal requirement precisely, Klaus. The bunker meets all criteria for civilian claiming under Swiss law. But at what cost?" Klaus gestured toward Astrid's homework scattered nearby. "She needs a father who focuses on reality, not impossible dreams. Brenner has connections throughout the canton. He will crush this claim and probably destroy your reputation in the process. Think about Astrid's future, not your pride." Outside, autumn rain drummed against windows while Henrik considered his brother's words, knowing that retreat might be the sensible choice. Dr. Elena Hoffman arrived from Bern on a crisp November morning, her credentials as a government historian and bunker preservation specialist preceding her reputation. The canton had assigned her to evaluate Henrik's claim from a historical perspective, determining whether AC 7749 warranted civilian ownership or government reclamation. Henrik met her at the trailhead, immediately recognizing the skepticism in her professional demeanor. She expected to find another amateur treasure hunter with romantic notions about abandoned military sites. Instead, she discovered someone who spoke fluently about reinforced concrete composition, ventilation system engineering, and Cold War defensive strategies. As they explored the bunker's depths, Henrik pointed out structural details that reveal the installation's true significance. "This communication array connects to the National Defense Network," he explained, indicating complex wiring configurations. The generator room housed backup power systems capable of independent operation for months. These storage chambers were designed for long-term supplies, suggesting this facility served strategic purposes beyond standard defensive positions. Dr. Hoffman's notebook filled with observations as Henrik demonstrated knowledge that surpassed many military historians. His explanations revealed understanding of engineering principles, tactical applications, and historical context that transformed her assessment of both the bunker and its claimant. Yet outside their professional bubble, community mockery continued. The local newspaper published a satirical piece about Henrik's treasure hunting adventures. Brenner organized informal meetings where neighbors discussed the embarrassing spectacle their community had become. During his third solo exploration, Henrik discovered something extraordinary. Behind a false wall panel in the deepest storage chamber, his flashlight revealed a sealed room the official blueprints had never documented. The steel door bore no military designation, its locking mechanism more sophisticated than standard bunker security. Inside, preservation had been remarkable. Military equipment from multiple eras filled carefully organized shelves. Communication devices, navigation instruments, and tactical gear worth significant money to collectors and museums sat untouched by time or moisture. Henrik's trained eye recognized items that military history enthusiasts would consider invaluable. He documented everything with careful photographs, his engineering background helping him understand the equipment's original purposes and current value. Conservative estimates suggested the collection could worth 50,000 Swiss francs, possibly more through proper authentication and sale to specialized collectors. But Henrik shared his discovery with no one, not even Astrid. Something deeper drove his continued exploration. An intuition developed through years of military service that suggested this bunker held secrets beyond abandoned equipment. The sealed chamber felt like a beginning rather than a conclusion. Meanwhile, Brenner's campaign intensified. He circulated petitions demanding the canton reject Henrik's claim, citing safety concerns and questioning whether a security guard possessed adequate qualifications for managing military property. Local businesses began treating Henrik with cool politeness, their previous friendliness replaced by awkward distance that made routine errands uncomfortable reminders of his community standing. Brenner's escalation reached its peak during the December town meeting. He stood before packed benches, his voice carrying the authority of elected office as he painted Henrik as a dangerous dreamer whose obsession threatened community safety and reputation. This man endangers his own daughter with reckless expeditions to unstable ruins, Brenner declared, his words calculated for maximum impact. Our town deserves better than becoming a laughingstock because one delusional security guard believes he can claim military property like some fairy tale treasure hunter. The audience murmured agreement, their collective disapproval washing over Henrik like a cold mountain wind. Worst came Monday morning when his supervisor at the security company called him into the office. Several clients had expressed concerns about employing someone whose judgment they questioned. His job hung by a thread. Astrid noticed the change in her father's demeanor. At dinner, she reached across their small table to touch his hand. "Papa, are you giving up on the bunker?" Henrik looked into his daughter's trusting eyes, seeing faith that his community had abandoned. "Never, Astrid. Sometimes the most important things require us to stand alone until others understand their value." But privately, Henrik felt the weight of isolation. His savings dwindled from legal expenses, his reputation crumbled under public scrutiny, and even longtime friends avoided him in the grocery store. Only his military discipline prevented complete surrender to the mounting pressure that threatened to crush his dreams and destroy his future. Henrik's breakthrough came during a January snowstorm that forced him to shelter deeper in the bunker than ever before. Following ventilation shafts that his engineering knowledge suggested led to secondary chambers, he discovered a section completely absent from official blueprints. Behind layers of camouflage concrete and steel lay a vault that defied explanation. His flashlight beam fell across wooden crates marked with symbols that made his breath catch. Nazi insignia mixed with Swiss military markings, suggesting wartime collaboration that official histories had carefully omitted. Inside the crates, his trembling hands uncovered gold bars, precious artifacts, and documentation that revealed this bunker's true purpose as a hiding place for stolen wartime treasures. Henrik's military training helped him recognize the significance immediately. Paintings wrapped in protective cloth bore signatures of masters whose works had been declared lost during the war. Jewelry and religious artifacts filled smaller containers. Conservative estimates suggested the vault contained items worth nearly 200 million Swiss francs, possibly more through proper authentication and repatriation processes. The magnitude of his discovery overwhelmed him. This was not simply abandoned military equipment, but a historical treasure trove with international significance. Every item represented stories of theft, survival, and loss that museums and families had mourned for decades. Henrik realized he held responsibility for returning stolen history to its rightful owners while securing his daughter's future beyond his wildest dreams. Henrik contacted Dr. Hoffman immediately, his careful documentation of the vault discovery transforming their professional relationship into urgent collaboration. She arrived within hours, her historical expertise crucial for authenticating items that could rewrite understanding of wartime Switzerland's role in preserving stolen treasures. Together, they cataloged artifacts with meticulous precision. Each piece told stories that official histories had buried. Religious items stolen from Jewish families, artwork looted from occupied territories, gold bars bearing Nazi stamps alongside Swiss banking codes. Dr. Hoffman's expertise confirmed Henrik's assessment that they had uncovered one of the most significant wartime treasure discoveries in European history. The legal implications were staggering. Swiss law clearly established Henrik's ownership rights to the bunker and its contents, but international treaties governing stolen wartime property created complex repatriation obligations. Dr. Hoffman explained that proper handling of the discovery would require coordination with multiple governments, museums, and surviving families whose property had been stolen decades earlier. More importantly for Henrik's immediate situation, Dr. Hoffman officially validated his legal claim to the bunker. Her report to the canton confirmed that AC 7749 met all criteria for civilian ownership, and that Henrik possessed exceptional qualifications for managing historical military property. His months of ridicule were about to transform into recognition. Word began spreading through official channels as Dr. Hoffman filed preliminary reports. The same community that had mocked Henrik's treasure-hunting fantasies was about to discover that their local security guard had achieved something extraordinary. The news broke on a Tuesday morning when international media descended upon their quiet mountain town. Headlines screamed about the discovery of Nazi treasure worth $190 million, found by a local security guard in an abandoned Swiss bunker. Television crews lined the streets while reporters sought interviews with anyone connected to Henrik's remarkable find. Councilman Brenner faced cameras with obvious discomfort. His previous mockery now broadcast internationally as evidence of his terrible judgment. Reporters asked pointed questions about his public campaign against Henrik's claim, forcing him to admit his complete misunderstanding of the situation. His political career crumbled under the weight of his own recorded words, dismissing Henrik as a delusional treasure hunter. The same neighbors who had whispered about Henrik's foolishness now competed to claim friendship with a man who had achieved international recognition. Grocery store conversations that once mocked his weekend expeditions transformed into admiring discussions of his persistence and expertise. The postman who had joked about treasure hunting now boasted about delivering mail to someone famous. Henrik stood in his modest apartment, surrounded by reporters and legal documents, feeling overwhelmed by the sudden transformation of his circumstances. Through the chaos, he watched Astrid handle the attention with remarkable composure, her faith in her father vindicated beyond imagination. Dr. Hoffman appeared at his door, her official credentials clearing a path through the media circus. "Henrik," she said quietly, "the government wants to discuss your discovery and its implications. You have achieved something extraordinary. 6 months later, Henrik stood before international dignitaries as stolen artwork was formally returned to museums and surviving families across Europe. His decision to donate most artifacts for proper repatriation had earned global respect, while legally retained finders' fees secured Astrid's future beyond their wildest dreams. The bunker had become a historical preservation site under Henrik's stewardship, its transformation from forgotten ruin to educational monument, reflecting his own journey from ridicule to recognition. Visitors came from around the world to learn about wartime history and the importance of preserving abandoned military sites. Astrid thrived in her new private school, her essays about her father's discovery earning praise from teachers who once pitied the security guard's daughter. She wore her pride openly, no longer the child of a dreamer, but the daughter of a man whose persistence had uncovered one of Europe's most significant historical finds. Even Brenner had approached Henrik privately, his political career destroyed, but his humanity somewhat restored through genuine apology. Henrik accepted gracefully, understanding that public humiliation taught lessons that private conversation never could. As evenings settled over their new home overlooking the mountains, Henrik reflected on the journey that had transformed their lives. Sometimes the greatest treasures remained hidden until someone with courage and knowledge looked beyond surface appearances to discover what others had dismissed as worthless. Have you ever witnessed someone's hidden talents emerge when given the chance? Share your thoughts about moments when persistence revealed unexpected treasures in the comments below.